The attack on the United States Capitol sparked serious discussions among lawmakers about removing President Trump from office in his final days in the White House. Members from both sides of the aisle have called on Vice President Pence and the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi telling colleagues in a letter that the House will look to pass a resolution formally making the 25th Amendment call and will move forward on impeachment articles if Vice President Pence does not play ball. Join us now is Congressman Eric Swalwell, Democrat of California. He's on the House Judiciary and Intelligence Committees. Congressman, nice to have you taking the time. I'm glad to see that you are safe, and I hope the same is for your staff and everyone there at the Capitol on Wednesday. We did just get this letter from Speaker Pelosi. I suppose Leader Hoyer tried to introduce unanimous consent on this. You knew that the GOP was not going to play ball on the Raskin legislation to sort of force the hand of the vice president here. This now falls on you and your colleagues. We knew that impeachment would be the likely step forward. How do you see the timeline playing out on all this in the days ahead?
Well, thank you, JD. The president is a threat to life, and he's a threat to our democratic ideals. The best thing he could do is to step aside. He's not going to do that. The next best thing would be for the vice president to invoke the 25th Amendment. We have seen that he does not have the courage to do that. So knowing our act and knowing our scene, we can impeach the president in the House. We have the votes to do that, I believe. It'll be bipartisan. And then the Senate should convict and remove him.
What message do you hope that this sends to future leaders, future historians, school children? They're going to look back. They're going to learn about the previous impeachments of Presidents Johnson and Clinton. They're going to say, hold on, this one guy was impeached twice. What do you want the history books to reflect about this moment?
I'll leave that to those who write the history books. I'm charged with protecting life and defending our democratic ideals. And when you see a threat like this president, we have to stop him. JD, there have been prior presidents to have been impeached or have come close to impeachment, but no one has ever endangered so many lives. And this president still has access to the nuclear codes. He's doing nothing to stop, armed protests that are occurring or are in planning phases right now over the next few days in state capitals and back at the U.S. Capitol. So there's an imminency here. And again, my kids will read about it in history books, but right now their dad has to do all he can, to protect the country.
Some of your Republican colleagues there, Congressman Swalwell, they say if you push forward with the 25th, you push forward with the 14th, or you push forward with impeachment, all you are going to do is divide this country in this already divisive moment more. How concerned are you about some of the, as we saw Wednesday, more militaristic wings of the pro-Trump movement out there becoming even more aggressive, more emboldened if you and your Democratic colleagues were to push forward with impeachment?
I'm not going to be bullied by those who were accomplices to the attack on the Capitol. Those who are calling for unity and healing were the same ones who foolishly and falsely led thousands to believe that they could overturn a peaceful election. And so, yes, we are going to unite, but we're going to unite against President Trump. We're going to unite against Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley. We're going to unite against Kevin McCarthy, because those are the insurrectionists who caused this. Republicans and Democrats want to unite, but we have to separate ourselves from those who are responsible. And so before there's uniting and healing, there has to be accountability, and accountability and protecting the country starts with doing all we can to remove the greatest threat, which is the president.
So if you identify the president as the greatest threat, you did just identify a few other key Republican names that many would argue have enabled the lies of the president to grow as fiercely as they can. Senator Ted Cruz, Senator Josh Hawley. You've got colleagues in the House, people like Mo Brooks and Barry Moore of Alabama, Dr. Paul Gosar. I mean, these are people who have fanned the flames of this conspiracy that some would say have added. What needs to happen to those lawmakers?
Again, I'm most concerned with protecting life and having a peaceful transition of power from now until the 20th. We lost, the status of being a country that's always had a peaceful transition of power. But yes, there should be consequences going forward. Cori Bush, my colleague from Missouri, is calling for expulsion. I'm certainly, supportive of expelling anybody who was responsible, for this insurrection. This is just, not America. And the second we allow people to, enable and inspire and radicalize others to take arms against the United States, that is the second we either go back in time to 1860 or we look like countries who we do not want to look like.
Look, I know you and your colleagues, you want to turn the page, especially after this bruising campaign, and you want to focus on the Biden agenda. But with yourself sitting on House Judiciary and House Intelligence, Congressman Swalwell, to what degree do you think you're going to be litigating not just the Trump presidency, but the horrific attack on Wednesday for the entire next 2 years at least? Is this just going to be dominating your work on Capitol Hill?
We can walk and chew gum at the same time, and some of the legislation addresses what we've seen. So the H.R. 1, John Lewis Voting Rights Act, that will make sure that we really protect and increase access that people have at the polls so that there is not as much voter suppression. And for all the Republicans who have had complaints about election integrity, well, nothing would bring more integrity to the election than making sure that every American eligible to vote is able to vote. And we do that with the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. So there's going to be legislation just like that that'll be coming in the next 100 days.
I got about 30 seconds with you left. We've seen the president banned permanently from Twitter. We've seen platforms like Parler deplatformed. Conservatives are alleging anti-conservative bias, but big tech is trying to, I suppose, impose these safety guardrails. Where do you draw the line, and have you seen enough from big tech in recent days?
You have a right to free speech in this country. You don't have a right to incite violence. And, these are private platforms. I'm certainly open to more regulations of just tech in general around data and privacy. But the people who have been banned have incited violence. And I think we want to protect life before we protect, their acts.
Congressman Eric Swalwell of California, thank you for taking the time again, sir. I'm glad that you're safe, and I hope the same for your staff members as well. And I'll catch up with you on Capitol Hill soon. Good luck on the road ahead. It's certainly going to be a busy one for you and your colleagues.